Stop telling yourself you're broken. Stop believing that anxiety, fear, and self-doubt are permanent features of who you are. Your brain is not a fixed organ. It's a muscle. And like any muscle, it grows according to the way you train it. Neuroplasticity is the scientific, proven, and undeniable reality that you can physically rewire the structure of your brain. Today, I'm not going to give you fluffy affirmations. I'm going to give you the training protocol. The exact methods that forge a mind that cannot be broken, a mind that thrives under pressure, a mind that is mentally unstoppable. Listen closely. The rewiring begins now. Chapter 1. The Lie of the Fixed Mind, Your Brain's First Betrayal. Let me expose the first and most damaging lie you have ever been told. It was whispered to you by well-meaning teachers. It was reinforced by proud parents. It was cemented by a society that loves to put people in neat, tidy boxes. The lie is this, that you were born with a fixed amount of intelligence, a fixed amount of talent, a fixed amount of resilience. That some people are just born strong, and others are born weak. That some people have good brains, and others drew the short straw in the genetic lottery. This lie is not just wrong. It is a prison, and you have been living inside it for your entire life. Here is the truth that will set you free. Your brain is not a computer with fixed hardware specs that you're stuck with until the warranty expires. Your brain is a living, breathing, constantly reshaping organ. It is more like a muscle than a machine. And like any muscle, it grows according to the way you train it. This is not a metaphor. This is not a motivational poster. This is cold, hard, peer-reviewed neuroscience. The term is neuroplasticity. Neuro, meaning brain. Plasticity means changeable, moldable, shapeable. Your brain physically rewires itself based on what you think, do, and focus on. The structure of your brain today is not the structure of your brain tomorrow if you choose to train it differently. The groundbreaking work of Dr. Carol Dweck at Stanford University proved this at the psychological level before the neuroscientists even fully caught up. She identified two mindsets, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. The fixed mindset believes intelligence and talent are carved in stone. The person with a fixed mindset believes they are either good at something or they're not. And if they're not, there's no point in trying because trying just proves they're defective. This is the neurological prison. The growth mindset believes that abilities can be developed through dedication, through hard work, through deliberate training. The person with a growth mindset sees a challenge and thinks, this is an opportunity to expand. The person with a fixed mindset sees the same challenge and thinks, this is a threat that might expose me as an imposter. You have a choice. Right now, in this moment, you can choose which mindset governs your life. You can stay in the prison of the fixed mind, where every failure is a verdict on your worth, and every difficulty is proof that you don't have what it takes. Or you can walk through the door of the growth mindset, where failure is just data, difficulty is just training, and your potential is limited only by the intensity of your effort. It's not about being born mentally tough. It's about training mental toughness. Your DNA is not your destiny. Your training is your destiny. Say that to yourself. My DNA is not my destiny. My training is my destiny. That's the key that unlocks the cell door. Now let me give you the concrete, undeniable scientific proof that your brain can physically change. I want to take you to London. Specifically, I want to take you to London's black cabs. Becoming a London taxi driver requires passing a test called the knowledge. It is one of the most demanding memory tests in the world. Drivers must memorize approximately 25,000 streets, 20,000 landmarks, and 320 routes through a city that was not built on a grid but evolved over centuries like a chaotic, twisting labyrinth. It takes 3 to 4 years of intense daily study to pass this exam. Neuroscientists at University College London saw this as a unique opportunity. They took brain scans of aspiring taxi drivers before they started the knowledge, and they scanned them again after they passed. What they found was revolutionary. The hippocampus, the brain region responsible for spatial memory and navigation, had physically grown. The posterior hippocampus was measurably larger in those who passed the test. The longer they drove, the larger it grew. Their brains had physically reshaped themselves in response to the demand placed upon them. These were not children with developing brains. These were adults. Adult brains that rewired and rebuilt through sheer mental effort. Now, I want you to sit with the implications of this study. If memorizing London streets can physically grow a specific region of the brain, what can your training do? If the brain can build new neural tissue for navigation, it can build new neural tissue for emotional regulation, for focus, for resilience, for the ability to remain calm under extreme pressure. The same mechanism that grew the taxi driver's hippocampi is available to you right now, in this moment. The question is, what are you demanding of your brain? Because if you're demanding nothing, if you're coasting, if you're scrolling, if you're avoiding difficulty, your brain is not staying the same. It's atrophying. Just like a muscle in a cast, unused neural pathways are being pruned away. You are either growing or shrinking. There is no maintenance mode for the brain. This brings us to the essential first step of our journey together: demolition before construction. Before you can build the mental architecture of an unstoppable mind, you must tear down the rotten structure that currently stands on the site. You cannot erect a skyscraper on a foundation of I can't. The I can't wiring has been running through your brain for years, maybe decades. It fires automatically. You face a challenge, and before you can even consciously process it, the circuit lights up, and the thought appears, fully formed: I can't do this. This is too much. I'm not the kind of person who handles things like this. This thought feels like the truth. It feels like identity. But it is neither. It is just a well-worn neural pathway. And pathways can be abandoned. You must identify these programs. You must become a detective of your own mind. Every time the phrase I can't appears, whether spoken or thought, you must catch it. I can't handle pressure. I can't speak in public. I can't control my emotions. I can't change. Catch it. Shine a light on it. And in that moment of recognition, you reject it. You refuse to let the old program run unchallenged. The first act of mental power is not thinking positive thoughts. It is rejecting the story that you lack power. When the thought says, I can't handle this, you respond not with yes, I can, but with something more precise. You say, I haven't trained for this yet. But the brain is trainable. And the training begins now. The demolition is not gentle. It is not comfortable. You are tearing down walls that have been standing since childhood. Walls built by a critical parent, a humiliating failure, a teacher who said you weren't good enough. Those walls have been your protection, but they have also been your cage. It's time to swing the wrecking ball. It's time to take a sledgehammer to the fixed mindset and reduce it to rubble. Because underneath that rubble is solid ground. And on that solid ground, we will build something unbreakable. You now know that your brain is not fixed. You have the evidence. The taxi driver's hippocampi are the proof. The prison door is open. The demolition has begun. But knowing that you can rewire is not the same as knowing what needs rewiring. In the next chapter, we go inside the mind to audit the specific thoughts that are keeping you weak. Chapter 2, The Thought Audit, 21 grams of mental fat. You now know the brain can change. The door is open. But before you start building new neural architecture, you need to know what you're working with. You need to see the raw material. And I'm going to warn you right now, this is going to be uncomfortable. Because most people have no idea what is actually happening inside their own heads. They believe they are thinking. But the truth is, they are being taught. There's a difference. Thinking is deliberate, conscious, and directed. Being thought is passive, automatic, and unconscious. And the vast majority of your 50 to 70,000 daily thoughts fall into the second category. Let me give you the statistic that should terrify you into action. The average human being has between 50,000 and 70,000 thoughts every day. That's roughly one thought every 1.2 seconds during waking hours. Now here is the devastating part. Research from the National Science Foundation and multiple cognitive studies suggests that, on average, 70 to 80% of thoughts are negative. Not just mildly negative. Repetitive. Self-limiting. Catastrophic. The same loops of worry, self-criticism, and rumination play over and over. Do the math. If you have 60,000 thoughts and 75% are negative, that's 45,000 negative thoughts every single day. 45,000 times, you are telling yourself you're not enough. 45,000 times, you are rehearsing failure. 45,000 times you are wiring the brain for weakness. And here is the most insidious part. You don't even notice it. The thoughts are so familiar, so automatic, that they feel like reality. They feel like you. I'm just a worrier. I'm just not a morning person. I just don't handle stress well. These are not personality traits. These are neural grooves that have been carved so deeply by repetition that the thought slides down them like water down a canyon. You are not thinking these thoughts. These thoughts are for you. The script was written years ago, perhaps in childhood, perhaps after a traumatic failure, and since then, you have been reading the same lines every single day without question. You have a choice. You can remain a passive receiver of the mental noise, or you can become the editor of your own mind. That's the key. You are not the ink. The ink is the raw stream of consciousness, the automatic negative thoughts, the ANTs, as some psychologists call them. The ink just flows. It flows from old wounds, from evolutionary fear circuits, from what your angry parents said to you when you were 12. You cannot control the ink's initial appearance. But you are not the ink. You are the editor. And the editor has a red pen. The editor gets to read the first draft and say, no. This is poorly written. This is factually inaccurate. This is not going to print. The editor rewrites the sentence, and then rewrites it again. And over time, the second draft becomes the default. This is what I call the second draft journaling method. And for the remainder of this 21-day program, this will be your most essential daily practice. Here is exactly how it works. You will carry a notebook or use a dedicated note on your phone, and every single time you catch an automatic negative thought, you will write it down. Word for word. Capture the exact phrasing of the inner critic. I'm going to mess this up. They think I'm incompetent. I'll never be successful. Something bad is going to happen. Write it down. Don't censor it. Don't pretty it up. Get it out of your head and onto the paper where you can see it. This is the first draft. This is the raw ink. Now comes the critical intervention. You take your pen, and you physically draw a line through that first draft. A hard, deliberate, satisfying line. You are not erasing it. You acknowledge it, then cross it out. You are showing your brain that this thought has been reviewed and rejected. And then, next to it or below it, you write the second draft. The second draft is not a fluffy, fake positive affirmation. It is an accurate, evidence-based, editorial correction. If the first draft is I'm going to mess this up, the second draft is I have prepared for this, and I am capable of handling whatever happens. If I make a mistake, I will learn from it. If the first draft is they think I'm incompetent, the second draft is I have no evidence for what they think. I only have evidence for what I have done. And my track record is solid. Do you see what's happening here? This process visually mirrors the neurological rewiring that we are trying to achieve. The first draft is the old neural pathway, the superhighway of negativity. By writing it down, you drag it out of the dark, automatic subconscious and into the light of conscious inspection. By drawing a line through it, you are symbolically and neurologically rejecting that pathway. You are saying, not this one. We don't take this road anymore. And by writing the second draft, You are laying down the first layer of asphalt on a new road. The new road is small. It's a dirt path compared to the old superhighway. But every time you do this exercise, you walk the new path. And every time you walk the new path, you widen it. The old path, meanwhile, starts to grow over. Use it or lose it. This is synaptic pruning in action, which we will cover in detail later. This brings me to a concept that will change the way you relate to your own mind. Cognitive calorie counting. You understand how physical calories work. If you eat more calories than you burn, you gain fat. If you eat junk food every day, you become sluggish, unhealthy, and weak. The body stores the excess as dead weight that slows you down. The same exact principle applies to your thoughts. A negative thought loop is mental fat. It is cognitive junk food. It tastes good in the moment. There's a strange, addictive pleasure in self-pity, in righteous anger, in catastrophic fantasizing. But it is empty. It is damaging. Over the years, it accumulates into a heavy, suffocating layer of mental obesity that slows your thinking, drains your energy, and makes every challenge feel 10 times heavier than it actually is. Every time you indulge in a negative thought loop, you are consuming a mental donut. You are feeding the beast of anxiety and self-doubt. And that beast grows. The more you feed it, the hungrier it gets. The more you rehearse the catastrophe, the more real it feels. The more you replay the criticism, the more true it sounds. You are what you think, not in some magical law of attraction sense, but in a brutally literal neurological sense. What you think, you wire. What you wire, you become. You have a choice every single moment. Feed the beast or starve it. Run the old loop or write the second draft. Consume the mental junk food or cook yourself a meal of accurate, constructive, disciplined thought. It's not about positive thinking. I want to be very clear about this because the self-help industry has poisoned this well. Positive thinking, as commonly taught, is often just another form of self-deception. You can't just tell yourself, I am wealthy, when you're broke and expect your brain to believe it. The brain is not stupid. It detects the lie, and it rebels. Accurate thinking is the goal. And the accurate truth is almost always much less catastrophic than the loop would have you believe. The loop says, this presentation will be a disaster, and I'll get fired. The accurate truth is, this presentation is important. I have prepared. I might be nervous, but nervous and excited are the same chemical. I will deliver value, and even if it's not perfect, I will learn and improve. That is not blind positivity. That is a fair, balanced, evidence-based assessment of reality. The loop is fiction. The accurate thought is nonfiction. And you must become a rigorous nonfiction editor of your own mind. Start the audit today. Start catching the ANTs. Attack them with the red pen. Write the second draft. Do this for 1 week, and you'll be astonished at the volume of garbage that has been running through your head unchallenged. Do it for a month, and the new pathways will be visible. Do it for 90 days, and you will have fundamentally restructured the architecture of your daily mental life. The editor is awake. The red pen is in your hand. The ink does not control you. You control the ink. Write the truth. Rewrite the lie. Repeat. This is the foundation of mental unstoppability. You have now begun the audit. You are catching the lies and rewriting them into truth. But there is a deeper, faster enemy than the slow drip of negative thoughts. It's the chemical hijack that happens when your brain sounds the alarm and floods your system with panic. In the next chapter, we learn to extinguish that fire before it spreads. Chapter 3: The Cortisol Firewall. Extinguishing the limbic hijack. You are doing the thought audit. You are catching the negative loops. But there is a problem you have almost certainly already encountered. Sometimes the thought doesn't arrive gently as a whisper. Sometimes it arrives as a tidal wave. Your heart pounds. Your palms sweat. Your stomach clenches. Your vision narrows. Your breath becomes shallow and rapid. And within seconds, you are no longer a rational adult capable of editorial thinking. You are a cornered animal flooded with terror, rage, or paralyzing anxiety. This is the amygdala ambush. And if you don't understand it, you will be its victim for the rest of your life. Let me explain the neurochemistry of what is happening inside your skull. Deep in the brain, buried in the temporal lobe, sits a tiny almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. It is the brain's smoke detector. It is the sentry. Its job is to scan incoming sensory data for threats, and if a threat is detected, to sound the alarm. When the alarm sounds, the amygdala floods your body with stress hormones, primarily cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate spikes to pump blood to the muscles. Your breathing accelerates to oxygenate the tissues. Your pupils dilate. Non-essential systems like digestion and higher reasoning shut down. You are in fight or flight mode. This is the limbic hijack. This system evolved over millions of years to keep you alive on the savannah. When a saber-toothed tiger lunged from the bushes, you didn't have time to ponder your options. The amygdala saved your life. The problem is that the saber-toothed tiger is extinct. And your amygdala does not know the difference between a predator that wants to eat you and a passive-aggressive email from your boss. It does not distinguish between a charging mammoth and a critical comment on social media. It does not know the difference between a life-threatening emergency and the nervous flutter of speaking up in a meeting. For the mentally fragile person, the smoke detector is calibrated far too sensitively. It goes off for everything. A sideways glance. A deadline. An unexpected knock on the door. And every time it goes off, the body is flooded with the same chemical cascade that was designed for mortal combat. Living this way is exhausting. It erodes your health, destroys your clarity, and leaves you feeling powerless. You have a choice. You cannot stop the amygdala from detecting threats. That's its job, and you wouldn't want to disable it even if you could. But you can recalibrate its sensitivity. You can build a cortisol firewall. You can learn to recognize the alarm when it sounds and shut it down before it hijacks your entire system. The alarm will still ring. But instead of a screaming, building-wide evacuation, it becomes a quiet notification that you can acknowledge and dismiss. I hear you. I'm handling it. Go back to standby. This is the goal. The signal arrives. You process it. You remain in control. The first and most powerful tool for building this firewall is a technique based on the research of Dr. Dan Siegel, a clinical professor of psychiatry at UCLA. He calls it "name it to tame it." And it is so simple, so immediate, that you might be tempted to dismiss it. Do not dismiss it. This is a neurological kill switch. Here is how it works. When the amygdala sounds the alarm, and the wave of emotion begins to surge through your body, you pause. You take a breath. And you label the emotion with precise, specific language. You say to yourself, "This is fear. I feel it tightening in my chest and flooding my stomach." Or, "This is anger. I feel it burning in my neck and clenching my jaw." Or, "This is shame. I feel it as a hot flush spreading across my face." What you have just done is nothing short of a neural miracle. The act of linguistic labeling shifts brain activity from the amygdala to the right ventrolateral prefrontal cortex. This is the brain's executive center, the seat of reasoning, planning, and impulse control. The language center is the kill switch for the panic center. When you put the emotion into words, you literally move the neural processing from the primitive, reactive brain to the advanced, rational brain. The amygdala begins to calm down. The cortisol flood slows. You regain access to your higher faculties. You go from being the cornered animal to being the composed, analytical adult. That's the key. The word is the weapon. The label is the leash. Name it, and you tame it. This works because of a fundamental structural feature of the brain. The amygdala and the prefrontal cortex have an essentially inverse relationship. When one is highly active, the other is suppressed. When the amygdala is screaming, the prefrontal cortex goes offline. You literally cannot think clearly. This is why you say things you regret in arguments and make terrible decisions when panicked. But the reverse is also true. When you activate the prefrontal cortex, by naming, by analyzing, by problem-solving, the amygdala is suppressed. You cannot be in a state of rational analysis and blind panic simultaneously. They are incompatible brain states. By naming the emotion, you choose the rational state. You force the brain to shift modes. Now, once you have named the emotion, you must do something equally critical. You must let the wave pass. This is where the 90-second rule becomes your salvation. This rule is derived from the work of Harvard neuroscientist Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. She studied the biochemical lifespan of an emotion. She found that when an emotional circuit is triggered, the chemical rush, the actual physiological surge of adrenaline, cortisol, and other neurochemicals, lasts for approximately 90 seconds. After that, the chemistry naturally flushes out of your system. The chemical wave rises, peaks, and subsides, all within a minute and a half. Think about that. 90 seconds. That's it. That is the entire lifespan of the physical sensation of any emotion. Anger surges for 90 seconds and then begins to dissipate. Panic floods for 90 seconds and then starts to recede. The chemical event is brief. It is finite. It is a wave, not a flood. So, if the chemistry only lasts 90 seconds, why do you sometimes feel angry for hours? Why do you ruminate on an anxious thought for an entire afternoon? Why does the feeling of shame linger for days? The answer is the story. It's the narrative you attach to the chemical wave. The chemistry says, I am angry. And then your mind says, I am angry because that person is a terrible human being. They always do this. This is so unfair. I remember the last time they did this. Why does this always happen to me? I need to tell someone about this. I need to plan my revenge. And so you re-trigger the circuit. You pour more adrenaline into the system. You hit the amygdala again and again and again, keeping the alarm screaming long after the original trigger is gone. The 90-second wave becomes a 90-minute, or 90-day, or 90-year loop of self-inflicted suffering. The chemical wave will pass on its own if you let it. Your suffering beyond 90 seconds is entirely self-inflicted by the story you are telling yourself about the emotion. Let the wave pass. Don't hold it in place with your narrative. This is the mantra of the cortisol firewall. When the emotion hits, you name it. You locate it in the body. You breathe into it for 90 seconds. You do not feed it. You do not justify it. You do not build a case for it. You do not tell the story. You just sit with the raw physical sensation. Feel the chest tighten. Feel the jaw clench. Feel the heat rise. And watch it. Observe it as a scientist would observe a specimen. Detach from the urge to narrate. The story is the fuel. Withdraw the fuel, and the fire goes out. The wave crashes on the shore and recedes back into the ocean. And you are still standing. This is the firewall. Name it to tame it. The 90-second rule. Two simple, biologically grounded protocols that together give you command of the most primitive, powerful system in your brain. You are no longer a helpless victim of your emotional surges. You are the fire marshal. The alarm sounds. You acknowledge it. You let the wave pass without adding fuel to the fire. And when the wave is gone, you return to the work, calm, clear, and fully in command. This is what mentally unstoppable people do. Not avoid the storm, but weather it with such precision and calm that the storm itself learns it has no power here. You now have the kill switch for the panic center. But why does the alarm go off so easily for some people and not for others? The next chapter exposes the hidden variable that determines whether you are a slave to your environment or the master of your response. Chapter 4. The External Locus Purge, Taking Back the Remote Control. You have learned to name the emotion and let the wave pass. But there is a deeper pattern that determines whether you even get to that point or whether you are swept away before you can even think to name anything. This pattern is not a thought. It is not an emotion. It is an orientation. It is the fundamental stance you take toward your own life. And for most people, that stance is one of profound, debilitating passivity. They are not the protagonists of their own story. They are the victims. And they don't even know it. Psychologists have a term for this. They call it the locus of control. Your locus of control is where you believe the power over your life resides. An internal locus of control means you believe your actions, decisions, effort, and mindset determine your outcomes. An external locus of control means you believe your outcomes are determined by forces outside yourself, other people, the economy, bad luck, your upbringing, your genetics, the weather, the traffic, or the mood of your boss. The vast majority of people operate with an external locus of control. And this orientation is not just a harmless quirk. It is a neurotoxin. And the neurotoxin is to blame. Blame is a chemical addiction. It feels good in the moment. When something goes wrong and you find someone or something to blame, you get a little hit of relief. It's not your fault. You are off the hook. You are the innocent victim of circumstance, and the problem lies elsewhere. Your career stalled. The economy is rigged. The boss is a jerk. The system is unfair. Your relationship failed. The other person was impossible. You just picked wrong. You're always unlucky in love. Is your health declining? You're too busy. Fast food is too convenient. Good food is too expensive. You don't have the right genes. The relief is immediate, but the cost is catastrophic. Every single time you blame, you hand the remote control of your life to someone else. You are saying, I am not in charge here. They are. The economy is. Bad luck is. I am just a cork bobbing on the ocean, powerless to change my direction. And then you wonder why you feel powerless. You have literally given your power away, one blame at a time. You have a choice. You can either keep the remote control in other people's hands or take it back. That's the key. The remote is yours. It has always been yours. But you have to consciously, deliberately, forcefully reclaim it. No one is going to hand it back to you. In fact, the world will encourage you to stay in blame because a person who blames is a person who is easy to control. A person who blames is a person who complains instead of rebels, who sulks instead of builds. The external locus is a cage, and the door is open. But you have to walk out. Let me give you the ultimate proof that this choice is real. Let me take you to a small concrete cell on Robben Island, off the coast of South Africa. For 18 of the 27 years that Nelson Mandela was imprisoned, this was his reality. A tiny cell. A hard floor. A bucket for a toilet. Hard labor in a limestone quarry under a blazing sun. Guards who treated him with contempt and brutality. His body was in a cage. He was separated from his family. He watched his own children grow up through letters that arrived months late, censored, full of holes. He was physically powerless. The apartheid regime that imprisoned him believed it had stripped him of everything. His freedom, his dignity, his future. But they made a fatal miscalculation. They did not understand the internal locus of control. They could cage his body, but they could not touch his mind. Inside that cell, Mandela was free. Free to think. Free to learn. Free to plan. Free to choose his response to every indignity, every cruelty, every crushing year of isolation. He chose not to hate, because he knew hate would consume him and leave him a bitter shell when he finally walked out. He chose resilience. He chose dignity. He chose to educate himself and his fellow prisoners, turning the prison into a university. He chose to study his captors, to learn their language, to understand their psychology, so that one day he could negotiate them out of power. He could not control the event. He could not control the injustice. But he could control his response. And because he controlled his response, he ultimately controlled the outcome. He walked out of that prison after 27 years, not a broken man, but a president. They can take your body, but they cannot take your chosen response. This is not a motivational poster. This is a lived, proven, historical fact. If Mandela could maintain an internal locus in a concrete box on an island, what excuse do you have? You live in an age of unprecedented opportunity. You have access to the total of human knowledge in your pocket. You are not in a cage. Your challenges are real. I am not dismissing them, but they are not even in the same universe of magnitude as what Mandela faced. Yet you hand over the remote control because someone was rude to you in an email. You let a rude comment derail your entire day. You let a slow driver trigger a spiral of road rage. You blame your parents for habits you have had for 20 years that you can't change. You blame your partner for your unhappiness. You blame the algorithm, the economy, the politicians, and the weather. The remote is on the floor, you are watching a terrible show, and you are complaining about it instead of picking it up and changing the channel. The reframe that must occur is radical and absolute. You are responsible. I want you to hear that word broken into its components. Response. Able. You can respond. You are not responsible for the initial event. The event comes from outside. The stimulus is real. The other person's behavior, the market crash, the diagnosis, the betrayal, these things happen. You did not choose them. You are not to blame for them, and self-blame is just the external locus turned inward, a sneaky form of victimhood. But from the moment the stimulus occurs, the response belongs to you. The gap between stimulus and response is the space where your humanity lives. In that gap is your freedom. In that gap is your power. In that gap, you pick up the remote. Most people collapse the gap to zero, stimulus response. Something happens, and they react instantly, automatically, without any conscious intervention. The amygdala hijacks them, and they are off to the races. The mentally unstoppable widen the gap. They train the pause. They insert a moment of deliberate consciousness between the event and the reaction. In that moment, they ask the critical question. Not why is this happening to me? That is the victim's question. That question has no answer that will help you. It leads only to rumination, self-pity, and blame. The question that catches the remote is this: what will I do about it? Not why. What? What is the next action? What is the strategic response? What move, right now, moves me forward? What thought, right now, keeps me in command? What word, right now, de-escalates the conflict? What decision, right now, turns the setback into a setup for a comeback? Stop asking why is this happening to me, and start asking what will I do about it? This is the mantra of the internal locus. This is the phrase that reclaims the remote. The victim asks why. The builder asks what. The blamer asks why. The leader asks what. The weak ask why. The unstoppable ask what. Every time you catch yourself slipping into the story of victimhood, every time you hear the seductive whisper of blame, every time you feel the world closing in on you as if you have no choices, stop. Take a breath. Find the gap. And ask the question: what will I do about it? Even if the only thing you can do is change your attitude. Even if the only thing you can do is refuse to be broken. Even if the only thing you can do is wait, breathe, and not make it worse. That is a choice. That is an action. That is the remote in your hand. The external locus purge is a daily, sometimes hourly, practice. The world will constantly try to convince you that you are a victim. The news, the social media feed, the gossip at the water cooler, it all reinforces the idea that someone else is to blame for your problems. You must unplug from that noise. You must starve the blame circuitry and feed the ownership circuitry. Blame is the junk food. Ownership is the protein. Blame weakens. Ownership strengthens. Blame is passive. Ownership is active. Blame is death. Ownership is life. Purge the word blame from your vocabulary entirely. Replace it with response. Replace it with action. Replace it with ownership. Take the remote. Change the channel. Build your empire. You now hold the remote. You own your response. But ownership is not just a concept. It is a biological process. In the next chapter, we go deeper into the actual pruning and rebuilding of the neural pathways that make ownership your default setting. Chapter 5, Synaptic Pruning, the dark art of use it or lose it. You are doing the work. You are naming the emotions. You are reclaiming the remote. You are writing the second draft. But I need to tell you something that might frustrate you. Those old negative thoughts are still showing up, aren't they? The anxiety, the self-criticism, the catastrophic loops. They haven't vanished. And you're wondering, am I doing this wrong? Why are they still there? I thought I was rewiring my brain. This is the moment where most people give up. They think the persistence of the old thoughts means the system isn't working. But the persistence of the old thoughts is proof that the system is working exactly as biology intended. You are not failing. You just haven't yet understood the dark art of synaptic pruning. Let me give you a metaphor that will forever change how you see the inside of your own skull. Your brain is not a computer. It is a jungle. Imagine a vast, dense, tropical wilderness. Now, imagine you need to walk through this jungle every day to reach a particular destination. The first time you walk, it is brutally difficult. You are hacking through thick undergrowth with a machete. It takes hours. It exhausts you. But you walk the path again the next day. And the next. And the next. Over time, something changes. The path becomes clearer. The undergrowth is trampled down. Walking becomes easier. Eventually, that narrow, difficult trail becomes a wide, smooth, comfortable superhighway. You can walk it without even thinking. Your feet know the way. This is exactly how neural pathways work. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every reaction you have is a path through the jungle of your brain. The thoughts you think most often become the superhighways. For most people, the superhighways of the mind are roads to hell. The anxiety highway, the self-criticism highway, the rumination highway, the victimhood highway. These roads are massive. They are 8 lanes wide. They are paved and lit with floodlights. Your brain slides down them automatically because they are the path of least resistance. The positive thoughts, the disciplined responses, the second drafts you've been writing, those are narrow, muddy, barely visible footpaths. They are hard to walk. They require effort and conscious attention. And if you don't understand the biology of what is happening, you will abandon those difficult new paths and default back to the superhighway because it's just so much easier. But here is the biological reality that changes everything. Your brain is not static. It is a living ecosystem. And inside your brain, there are tiny cellular gardeners called glial cells. These cells have a specific, ruthless job. They prune. They break down and clear away unused synaptic connections. This process is called synaptic pruning. The brain is a use it or lose it organ. When a pathway is walked repeatedly, it is reinforced. Myelin, a fatty insulating substance, wraps around the neural fibers, making the signal faster and stronger. This is how the superhighways got so wide. But when a pathway is neglected, when it is left unused, the glial cells move in like a jungle reclaiming an abandoned road. They break down the old asphalt. They digest the unused synaptic connections. The road begins to crack. Weeds push through. Eventually, the jungle swallows it whole. This is the truth that you must internalize. You cannot consciously, actively destroy the negative superhighways. You cannot take a sledgehammer to the anxiety circuit. You cannot will the depression pathway out of existence. But you can starve it. You can refuse to walk it. And every time you refuse, every single time you catch the negative thought and choose the second draft instead, you are not just building the new path. You are simultaneously starving the old one. You are withholding the traffic that keeps it alive. You are sending a signal to the glial cells that says, "This road is being decommissioned. Tear it up." It doesn't happen overnight. The superhighway took years to build. It will take time to crumble. But the process is inevitable if you remain consistent. Ignore the path, and the jungle reclaims it. This is the mantra of synaptic pruning. When the negative thought arises, and you refuse to engage with it, you are not being passive. You are being aggressively, biologically strategic. You are wielding the dark art of neglect. You are starving the beast you cannot yet kill. The thought will shout louder for a while. It will scream for attention. This is called an extinction burst. An abandoned pathway, in its death throes, will fire more intensely, trying to get you to walk it again. Don't fall for it. The screaming is a sign of weakness, not strength. The screaming is the sound of the superhighway crumbling. Let it scream. Walk the new path. The jungle will do the rest. Now, I want to give you an accelerated protocol for this starvation process. I call it the 4-day dopamine cleanse. Or more accurately, a 4-day negativity fast. For the next 4 days, you are going to create a withdrawal period so intense, so deliberate, that the negative neural networks begin to wither from sheer, absolute neglect. Here is the protocol. For 96 hours, you will not complain. Not once. Not out loud. Not in your head. You will catch the complaint impulse, and you will strangle it before it reaches your lips or solidifies into a thought. You will not gossip. Gossip is complaining about someone who isn't present. It is a superhighway of negativity disguised as social bonding. You will starve it completely. If someone begins to gossip in your presence, you will either change the subject or leave. You will not consume catastrophic news. No doom scrolling. No outrage-inducing headlines. No algorithmically curated fear. You are fasting from mental junk food entirely. This will be hard. You will feel the withdrawal pangs. The superhighways want their traffic. The complaint reflex is deeply ingrained. You will feel a physical urge to speak the negative word, to share juicy gossip, to check the news for the latest disaster. This urge is the death rattle of the old pathway. Don't feed it. Sit with the discomfort of not complaining. Notice the silence where the gossip used to be. Feel the clarity that emerges when the fear-based news cycle is removed from your input stream. This is the sound of the jungle reclaiming the road. This is the beginning of real, structural, neurological freedom. You have a choice in these 4 days. Every moment, you are choosing which pathway gets the traffic. The complaint highway or the gratitude footpath. The gossip superhighway or the silence trail. The fear loop or the presence path. You cannot walk both at once. Every step on the new path is a step not taken on the old one. The new path grows. The old path starves. The choice is binary. The choice is constant. The choice is yours. You are the architect of your own neural jungle. Prune ruthlessly. Walk deliberately. Starve the darkness. Feed the light. The old roads are coming down. The new empire is rising. And what you are building here is not just a habit. It is a physical structure, a new brain, a new mind, a new you. You are now actively, biologically pruning the negative pathways. But we cannot stop at removing the bad. We must also forge the specific mental muscle that makes the difference between a wish and an unbreakable will. In the next chapter, we target the exact brain region that grows when you do hard things. Chapter 6. Forging the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, the Goggins muscle. We have been talking about the brain as a muscle. But now I want to get very, very specific. I want to introduce you to a tiny, deeply buried, profoundly important region of your brain. It's called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, or AMCC for short. You have probably never heard of it. Most people haven't. But this small cluster of neurons is, quite literally, the biological seat of your willpower. It is the engine of tenacity. It is the physiological source of the voice that says, "Keep going," when every other voice in your head is screaming for you to stop. And here is the most important thing you will learn today. The anterior mid-cingulate cortex grows when you do things you do not want to do. This is not a metaphor. This is not a motivational concept dressed up in brain language. This is measurable, visible, peer-reviewed neuroscience. Researchers have scanned the brains of people who consistently engage in difficult, unpleasant tasks, the kind of tasks that require overriding the body's instinct to seek comfort and avoid pain. And what they found is that the anterior mid-cingulate cortex is significantly larger and more densely connected in these individuals. It is physically thicker. It has more neural real estate. Conversely, in people who avoid discomfort, who constantly seek the easy path, and who quit when things get hard, the AMCC is smaller and less developed. It atrophies from lack of use, just like any other muscle. When David Goggins, the former Navy SEAL and ultra-endurance athlete, talks about callousing the mind, he is not speaking in metaphors. He is describing a physiological reality. The callus is the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Every time Goggins does something that his body and brain desperately want to stop doing, running another mile on broken feet, staying awake for another hour in the hell of SEAL training, pushing through another rep when every muscle fiber is screaming, he is not just building mental character. He is building physical tissue. He is laying down new neural material. He is thickening the callus. The mind does not become calloused through thinking about hard things. It becomes calloused through doing hard things. The physical action forges the neural structure. The body leads. The brain follows. This changes everything about how you should approach your training. Most people wait for motivation. They wait until they feel like doing the hard thing. They believe that willpower is a feeling, a mood, a gift that descends upon them like grace. This is backward. Willpower is not a feeling. Willpower is a muscle. And you don't wait for a muscle to feel like working. You work the muscle, and then it grows. You don't go to the gym because you feel strong. You go to the gym to become strong. The feeling of strength is the result of the work, not the precondition. The same absolute law applies to the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. You don't do the hard thing because you have willpower. You have willpower because you do the hard thing. So here is the prescription. Starting today, you will adopt the One Hard Thing protocol. Every single day, without exception, you will schedule and execute one task, one activity, one deliberate act of discomfort that you genuinely do not want to do. Not something that's mildly inconvenient. Something you dread. Something that makes your mind flinch when you think about it. The cold plunge. The sprint workout when your legs are already sore. The difficult conversation you've been avoiding for weeks. The 2-hour deep work block on the project that scares you. The public speaking practice when your voice shakes. The fasting day when food is all you can think about. You go to the gym to grow biceps. You do the hard thing to grow your will muscle. This is the direct, one-to-one translation. When you do bicep curls, you tear muscle fibers, and the body repairs them thicker and stronger. When you override your comfort instinct, you fire the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, and the brain strengthens those circuits. The mechanism is the same. The adaptation is the same. The no pain, no gain principle that everyone accepts for physical fitness applies with equal ruthlessness to mental fitness. If you only do what feels good, you will be mentally flabby. If you consistently do what feels hard, you will become mentally unstoppable. The hard thing does not have to be extreme. It does not have to be a Goggins-level ultramarathon. It just has to be hard for you. It has to be slightly beyond your current capacity. It has to trigger that internal voice that says, "I don't want to do this. Let's do it tomorrow. Let's do the easier version. Let's just skip it today, it won't matter." That voice is the signal. That voice is the indicator that you have located the exact exercise your MCC needs to grow. When you hear that voice, you have found the weight. Now lift it. Do the thing the voice doesn't want you to do. That's the key. The resistance is the exercise. The friction is the growth mechanism. Eliminate the friction, and you eliminate the adaptation. Seek out the friction. Welcome it. It is making you stronger in real time. And now, the most powerful implication of this biology. The anterior mid-cingulate cortex does not care which domain the hard thing comes from. The neural growth is domain general. This means that the strength you build in the cold plunge does not stay in the bathroom. It transfers. The tenacity you forge in the brutal workout transfers to the boardroom. The ability to stay calm and controlled while your body screams in the ice directly upgrades your ability to stay calm and controlled while your business partner screams at you in a meeting. The argument with your spouse that would have triggered a reactive explosion now triggers a measured, composed response. The deadline pressure that would have sent you into a panic spiral now feels manageable, even energizing. Why? Because the same brain region is handling all of it. The anterior mid-cingulate cortex is the generator of willpower. It doesn't matter which battlefield you train it on. The general gets stronger, and the stronger general commands every battle more effectively. This is the tenacity transfer. You are not just building a cold shower habit. You are building a transferable, global, whole-life resilience. Every time you do something hard, you raise your baseline capacity to handle all hard things. The cold water is not just cold water. It is a proxy war. You are rehearsing the sensation of doing the unbearable, and you are teaching your brain that the unbearable is, in fact, bearable. And that lesson, once learned in the body, becomes available to the mind in every context imaginable. Start today. Pick your hard thing. Put it on the schedule. Not sometime in the afternoon. Not when I feel ready. Put it at a specific time. Treat it like an appointment with the iron. When the time comes, and the voice starts making excuses, recognize the voice for what it is. It is the weak, flabby, untrained version of you trying to stay comfortable. Move toward the voice. Do the thing it doesn't want you to do. Feel the discomfort. Stay in it. Breathe through it. And when it's over, know that you have just completed a rep for the most important muscle in your body. The will muscle. The tenacity muscle. The anterior mid-cingulate cortex. You are not the same brain you were before that rep. You are stronger. You are thicker. You are more calloused. And tomorrow, you will do it again. You are now physically forging the neural machinery of willpower. But the brain's rewiring isn't just about building new structures. It's also about changing what the brain associates with pain and pleasure. In the next chapter, we tap into the brain's basic operating system to make discipline automatic. Chapter 7, the Neuroassociative Conditioning Switch, the NLP switch. You are building the muscle of will. You are pruning the old pathways. But there is a deeper, more primal force driving every single decision you make. It operates below conscious thought. It is the fundamental operating system of the human brain. And if you don't learn to program it deliberately, it will be programmed by default, by advertisers, by social media algorithms, by your own worst impulses. The operating system is this. The human brain moves either toward pleasure or away from pain. Every action you take, every habit you form, every thought you think is ultimately governed by this binary, biological imperative. You are a pleasure-seeking, pain-avoiding machine. The problem is not this mechanism. The mechanism is brilliant. It has kept the species alive for millions of years. The problem is that most people have their pain-pleasure wiring completely backward. They have linked pleasure to the things that destroy them, and pain to the things that would save them. Junk food is linked to pleasure. Discipline is linked to pain. Scrolling is linked to pleasure. Deep work is linked to pain. Procrastination is linked to pleasure. The hard conversation is linked to pain. And so, automatically, unconsciously, the brain steers toward destruction and away from construction. You are not broken. Your neuroassociations are broken, and they can be rewired. This is the core insight of neuroassociative conditioning, a framework developed and popularized by Tony Robbins. The premise is simple and devastatingly effective. To change a behavior permanently, you must link massive, unbearable pain to the old behavior and massive, ecstatic pleasure to the new behavior. Not mild discomfort. Not a slight preference. Massive. The brain needs a jolt strong enough to override the existing wiring. Think of it like this. If I offered you $1 million never to eat chocolate again, you would instantly lose your taste for chocolate. Your brain just made a new association. Chocolate equals losing $1 million equals massive pain. The old pleasure is nothing compared to the new pain. The switch flipped in an instant. You can do this deliberately, with your own mind right now. You have the power to reprogram your own pain-pleasure circuitry. And the tool we are going to use is a visualization technique drawn from neurolinguistic programming. It's called the swish pattern. The swish is a rapid sensory recalibration that changes how your brain represents two competing futures. Here is how it works. Close your eyes for a moment. I want you to picture the old you, the undisciplined you, the you who avoided the hard things, who scrolled instead of focused, who gave in to every impulse. Picture that version of yourself in vivid detail. What does that life look like 5 years from now if nothing changes? What does your body look like? Your relationships? Your career? Your mental state? Make the image small. Make it dim. Make it black and white. Push it far away into the distance. Hear the sounds of that life as faint, muffled, pathetic. Feel the heavy, sinking, gray weight of that existence. This is the future you are currently walking toward if you do not change. Now, hold that image in one hand mentally, and push it aside. And now, bring up a completely different image. Picture the new you. The disciplined you. The one who does the hard thing every single day. The you who has calloused the mind, rewritten the thoughts, seized the mornings. Picture this version of yourself 5 years from now. What does that life look like? What is your body like? Your bank account? Your impact on the world? Your inner state of peace and power? Make this image huge. Make it bright, full of vivid, saturated color. Make it panoramic, wrapping around your field of vision. Make it three-dimensional, so real you could step into it. Hear the sounds of this life loud, clear, and triumphant. Feel the pride, the energy, the deep, earned satisfaction radiating from this image. This is the future that belongs to the disciplined you. Now, here is the swish. I want you to take that small, dark, distant image of failure and put it right in front of your face. And in the bottom corner of that image, place a tiny, bright. That is the big, colorful, powerful image of your disciplined future. And now, in a split second, I want you to say swish in your mind, and instantly, that tiny bright explodes outward, completely replacing and obliterating the dark image. The new you blasts through the old you. Big, bright, loud, powerful. Do it again. Dark image up close. Tiny bright dot. Swish. Explodes outward. The old image shattered. The new image is dominant. One more time. Dark. Dot. Swish. The new you obliterates the old. What you have just done is not just a cute visualization exercise. You have physically altered your brain's preference hierarchy. By making the image of failure small, dark, and distant, you have neuroassociatively linked it to pain. By making the image of discipline huge, bright, colorful, and immediate, you have neuroassociatively linked it to pleasure. Your brain, from this moment forward, is neurologically tilted toward discipline rather than weakness. Every time you face a choice, the swish pattern will fire in the background. The brain will move toward the bright, powerful image and away from the dark, shrunken one. You have reprogrammed the pain-pleasure linkages. Now, let's solidify this with a daily practice I call the bifurcation point. Every single decision you face during the day is a fork in the road. A bifurcation point. The alarm goes off. Path A, hit snooze. Path B, feet on the floor. The work block begins. Path A, open the phone. Path B, open the document. The craving hits. Path A, give in. Path B, ride the wave. In each of these moments, you have a window of maybe 2 or 3 seconds before the automatic program kicks in. That window is the bifurcation point. And in that window, you have the power to run the simulation. The brain is a simulator. It is the most advanced simulation engine in the known universe. It can project futures, model consequences, and generate the emotional weight of those futures before they ever happen. Most people let this simulator run wild, generating catastrophic futures that fuel anxiety. You are going to harness it deliberately. At the bifurcation point, when you feel the pull of the old behavior, you will run the movie. Not the movie of immediate gratification. Run that movie to its bitter logical end. You want to skip the workout? Fine. Run the movie. Run it forward 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 5 years. See the atrophy. See the weakness. See the disappointment. See the small, dark, black and white life closing in on you. Feel the pain of that future. Let it flood you. That's where hitting snooze leads. Now, run the other movie. You do the workout. You resist the craving. You open the document. What happens? Run it forward. The strength builds. The project ships. The income grows. The pride deepens. The big, bright, colorful, panoramic life becomes reality. Feel the pleasure of that future. Let it pull you like a magnet. And then, after both movies have run, make the choice. The old path doesn't look so tempting anymore, does it? When you see where it actually leads, the immediate comfort is revealed for what it is, a trap. A poison wrapped in candy. The new path, the hard path, is clearly, visibly, undeniably the path to everything you actually want. Run the simulation of failure to its bitter end, and the present action becomes easy. That's the key. The action is hard only when the consequences are hidden. When the consequences are made vivid, immediate, and emotionally real, the hard action becomes the obvious action. The discipline becomes the pleasure. The avoidance becomes the pain. You have flipped the switch. You have reprogrammed the operating system. The brain is no longer your enemy, steering you towards self-destruction. The brain is your ally, trained to seek what builds you up and flee what tears you down. The switch is set. The bifurcation point is mapped. The simulator is running. You are now the programmer of your own pain and pleasure. And what you have linked to pleasure will become your destiny. You have now flipped the internal switch. The brain knows what to move toward and what to run from. But there is one more voice inside you that still doesn't speak the language of the new you. In the next chapter, we tune that inner voice from a harsh critic into the most powerful coach you've ever had. Chapter 8, The Inner Monologue Tuning, Resonance versus Static. You have reprogrammed the pain-pleasure switches. You have forged the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. You are pruning the old pathways and laying down new ones. But there is a voice inside your head that narrates every single thing you do. It is the constant, unending inner monologue. And if that voice is working against you, all the rewiring in the world won't save you. That voice is the sound of your neural circuits firing. It is the audible manifestation of your brain's wiring. And for most people, that voice is not a coach. It is a criticism. It is not a source of power. It is a source of static, noise, and sabotage. Think about how you speak to yourself when things go wrong, when you make a mistake, when you face a high-pressure situation. What is the tone? What are the words? For so many people, the inner monologue shifts into the voice of a critical parent. You idiot. How could you do that? You always mess this up. You're not good enough. You're going to fail. Everyone will see you fail. You should have known better. You're weak. You're lazy. You're broken. Imagine speaking to a child this way. Imagine speaking to a friend this way. You would never. But you speak to yourself this way, constantly, automatically, and you wonder why you feel anxious, depressed, and paralyzed. The problem is not that you have an inner voice. The inner voice is a gift. It is the tool of self-reflection, planning, and metacognition. The problem is that your inner voice is tuned to the wrong frequency. It is broadcasting static. The critical parent is not you. It is a recording. It is an internalized echo of someone else's voice, a harsh parent, a mocking teacher, a bullying peer. That recording got wired into your neural circuitry years ago, and it has been playing on a loop ever since. You have mistaken the static for the signal. You have mistaken the critic for yourself. You have a choice. You can let the old recording keep playing, or you can tune the signal. That's the key. You are the sound engineer of your own mind. You have the mixing board. You can turn down the static and turn up the resonance. The voice in your head is not a fixed feature. It is a tunable instrument. And tuning it is one of the most powerful things you will ever learn to do. Let me share a tuning technique backed by rigorous scientific research. Dr. Ethan Kross, one of the world's leading experts on introspection and emotion regulation, runs the Emotion and Self-Control Lab at the University of Michigan. His research has uncovered a startlingly simple yet powerful phenomenon. When people are under stress, the way they refer to themselves in their inner monologue dramatically impacts their performance and emotional state. When you use the first-person pronoun I am so nervous. I can't handle this. I'm going to fail. You are completely fused with the emotion. You are drowning in it. There is no distance, no perspective, no space to breathe. But when you shift to using the second person you, or even the third person, using your own name, something remarkable happens. The brain steps back. David, you're feeling nervous right now. You can handle this. You've prepared for this. This is just a wave of adrenaline, and it will pass. Or simply, you're okay. You've done hard things before. You can do this one too. The shift from I to you creates what Kross calls cognitive distance. It is a form of psychological self-distancing that instantly lowers anxiety, reduces emotional reactivity, and improves performance under pressure. The language you use physically alters the brain's response to stress. The you voice activates the prefrontal cortex, the seat of reason, rather than drowning in the amygdala's panic signal. This is not a gimmick. This is why elite performers instinctively do this. LeBron James has publicly referred to himself in the third person, talking about LeBron and what LeBron needs to do. The media often mocks this as an ego. They misunderstand it completely. It is not ego. It is cognitive distance. It is a highly skilled performer using a psychological tool to manage the immense pressure of global expectations. When LeBron says, LeBron has to stay focused, he is not being arrogant. He is managing his own nervous system with the same precision he uses to manage a basketball. He is tuning his inner monologue from reactive static to strategic resonance. So, starting now, you will experiment. For the next week, whenever you feel stress, anxiety, or self-criticism rising, you will deliberately shift your inner monologue. You will speak to yourself as you. You will coach yourself through the moment as if you were coaching your best friend, your child, or your most beloved person. You're feeling the fear right now. That's okay. The fear is just a chemical wave. You have ridden these waves before. You are stronger than the wave. Breathe. You've got this. Let's go. Run this script. Feel the difference. The you voice is the coach's, not the critic's. And this brings us to the second major tuning adjustment. You must banish the critical parent's voice entirely and replace it with the voice of a championship coach. What is the difference? The critic says, you're worthless. You always fail. You should just give up. The coach says, that wasn't your best. Get up. We're doing it again. And this time, we're doing it right. The drill sergeant, the kind who forges elite soldiers, does not say, "You're worthless." That would produce broken, traumatized soldiers who cannot function. The elite drill sergeant says, "Get up. On your feet. Do it again. Push harder. I know what you're capable of. Show me." The tone is harsh. The demand is absolute. But the underlying message is love, belief, and commitment to your highest potential. The critic tears you down. The coach builds you up through demanding standards. The critic speaks from contempt. The coach speaks from conviction. The critic looks backward at your failures and uses them to define you. The coach looks forward at your potential and uses the failures as fuel for improvement. Every time you catch the critic's voice, you will stop. You will recognize it. That is the old recording. That is not the truth. And you will deliberately switch to the coach's voice. You will speak to yourself with authority, with firmness, with the unshakable belief that you are capable of more. You will not coddle yourself. The coach does not coddle. But you will not crush yourself either. The critic crushes. The coach challenges. The challenge lifts you. The crush holds you down. Choose the coach. Finally, we must address what you affirm. The self-help world is saturated with positive affirmations. I am abundant. I am confident. I am successful. You stand in front of the mirror, and you say these things, and your brain quietly, subtly rejects them. Why? Because your brain has a highly sensitive lie detector. If you are currently broke, saying, "I am wealthy," creates a cognitive dissonance that the brain dismisses as fantasy. The affirmation of empty identity does not work. What works is the affirmation of action. The brain does not believe the lie of an empty identity. The brain believes the vow of action. Therefore, you will replace all passive "I am" statements with active "I am willing to" and "I am committed to" statements. Do not say, "I am fearless." The brain knows you are afraid. Say, "I am willing to act in the presence of fear." Do not say, "I am a great writer." Say, "I am committed to writing every single day until I become great." Do not say, "I am confident." Say, "I am willing to speak even when my voice shakes." The vow of action is honest. The vow of action acknowledges the present reality while directing the brain toward future behavior. The brain accepts the vow because it is true. You are, in this moment, willing. You are, in this moment, committed. The action is within your control. The identity will follow the action, not the other way around. Tune the inner monologue. Shift from I to you. Replace the critic with the coach. Trade the empty identity for the vow of action. The voice inside your head is either your greatest enemy or your greatest ally. Tune out the static. Crank up the resonance. The voice you speak to yourself with is the voice that will lead you into battle. Make sure that voice is the one you want in command when everything is on the line. You have tuned the inner signal. The voice is now a coach, not a critic. But even the best coach needs a strategy for the moments when everything goes wrong. In the next chapter, we inoculate your mind against the worst-case scenario so that nothing can shake you. Chapter 9. The Resilience Reserve, PRE Exposure Therapy. You are now in command of the inner voice. You have forged the will muscle. You have reprogrammed the pain-pleasure switches. But there is a question that still haunts the back of your mind. A question that whispers in the dark hours of the night when sleep won't come. What if something really bad happens? What if I lose everything? What if the worst-case scenario actually unfolds? You push the question away. You try to think positively. You tell yourself it won't happen. You hope for the best. And the fear just burrows deeper, waiting for the moment of crisis to explode. Here is the hard truth. Bad things will happen. The crisis will come. The market will crash. The relationship will end. The diagnosis will arrive. The rejection will land. This is not pessimism. This is the statistical reality of a human life. You can either spend your life terrified of the inevitable, or you can train for it. You can build a resilience reserve so deep, so fortified, that when the storm hits, you are not only unshaken, you are almost bored. You have been here before. You have rehearsed this. This is just another drill. The military has a term for this. They call it stress inoculation training. The principle is elegant and brutally effective. You do not send a soldier into combat without first exposing them to the sights, sounds, smells, and terrors of the battlefield in a controlled training environment. You simulate the chaos. You simulate the explosions, the smoke, the screaming, the time pressure, the information overload. You make it as real as possible without actually killing them. And by doing this, you inoculate the soldier against the psychological collapse that would otherwise occur in real combat. The training stress is the vaccine. The controlled exposure builds antibodies. When the real thing hits, the soldier's brain does not panic. It says, "I know this. I've been here. I have the protocol." The stress response is dampened. The performance is preserved. You can apply this same principle to your own life. You cannot wait for the crisis to figure out who you are. That's the key. If the first time you face extreme pressure is when everything is on the line, you will crumble. The moment is too big. The stakes are too high. The amygdala will hijack you completely. You need to have faced the pressure before, in smaller controlled doses, so that your nervous system is pre-adapted. Every time you voluntarily do something hard, every cold plunge, every difficult conversation, every fast, every public speaking opportunity you take when you're terrified, you are not just building the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. You are also building a resilience reserve. You are stress inoculating yourself. You are depositing into a psychological bank account that you will draw from when the true crisis arrives. So the prescription is this. Seek out controlled stress. Actively, deliberately, regularly. If you're afraid of public speaking, join a speaking club and get up in front of people every week until the fear becomes manageable. Suppose you're afraid of financial instability, deliberately fast from spending for a week, and feel the discomfort of doing without. If you're afraid of physical weakness, train for something that pushes your body to its absolute limit. The point is not the specific skill. The point is the nervous system adaptation. The point is teaching your brain, at a biological level, that stress is not a threat. Stress is just a training stimulus. And a trained stimulus is something you respond to with composure rather than panic. But you cannot physically simulate every possible crisis. Some fears are too large, too abstract, too existential to replicate in a training environment. This is where the Stoic philosophers of ancient Rome offer a technique of profound psychological power. They called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Negative visualization. This is the practice of vividly, deliberately, and calmly imagining the worst possible outcomes, not in a spirit of anxiety or rumination, but in a spirit of preparedness and mastery. Here is how it works. You sit in a quiet place. You close your eyes. And you bring to mind the thing you are most afraid of losing. Your business is failing. Your partner is leaving. Your reputation is destroyed. Your health is collapsing. You bring it to mind not as a vague, terrifying cloud, but with precise, concrete detail. You walk through the scenario step by step. You feel the phone call. You see the bank account at zero. You hear the words of rejection. You experience the shame, the grief, the fear. You let yourself feel all of it. And you breathe. You stay present. You observe the images and the sensations without flinching, without running, without trying to fix anything. You just watch. And you realize something astonishing. You are still here. You are still breathing. The worst thing has happened in your mind, and you have not died. What you have just done is strip the monster of its power. The monster in the closet is always scarier than the monster in the daylight. When the fear is vague, shapeless, and unexamined, it looms infinitely large. It fills the entire room of your mind. But when you drag the fear into the light, examine it in precise detail, name it, and walk through it, it shrinks. It becomes finite. It becomes manageable. It becomes just another scenario, one you have now rehearsed. And in that rehearsal, you discover that even if the worst happens, you will still be standing. You will still be breathing. You will still have choices. The premeditatio is not about inviting disaster. It is about discovering your own unbreakability before the disaster even arrives. But there is one final layer to the resilience reserve. One anchor that holds everything in place when the body is exhausted and the mind is battered. This is the deepest layer, the bedrock. It is your why. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps, including Auschwitz. He lost his wife, his parents, his brother, his life's work, everything. He was stripped to the absolute core of human existence. And what he discovered in that hell was a truth that has since become one of the most powerful psychological insights in history. The people who survived the camps were not necessarily the physically strongest. They were not the luckiest. They were the ones who had a why. A reason to live. A purpose that transcended their current suffering. A child they needed to see again. A book they needed to write. A truth they needed to bear witness to. Frankl wrote the immortal line, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Your why is your iron rod. It is the spine that keeps you upright when everything else collapses. Shallow optimism, "it'll all work out, just think positive," will shatter under real pressure. Shallow optimism is a paper umbrella in a hurricane. But a deep, unshakable sense of purpose is an iron rod that no storm can bend. When the crisis hits, the shallow optimist asks, "Why is this happening to me?" and has no answer. The person with the iron rod asks the same question, and the answer is already there. I am here to protect my family. I am here to build my legacy. I am here to serve my mission. This suffering is part of the path. I accept it. I will walk through it. My purpose is bigger than this pain. You must define your why now, not in the crisis. It is too late to build an iron rod when the hurricane is already on top of you. You build it in the calm. You forge it in the quiet. You write it down. You condense it into a single sentence or a single image that represents the deepest, most non-negotiable purpose of your life. It might be your children. It might be a vision of the person you are committed to becoming. It might be a contribution you must make before you die. It must be something so important to you that you would suffer enormously and still keep going. That is the iron rod. That is the resilience reserve at its deepest level. After completing the stress inoculation training, you are physically and mentally prepared for a crisis. When you have the premeditatio malorum, you have stripped the crisis of its psychological terror. And when you have the iron rod of your why, you have a reason to keep walking forward, no matter what the crisis throws at you. This is the three-layered fortress of the mentally unstoppable. The storm will come. It always comes. But you are not a leaf to be blown away by the wind. You are a mountain. The storm rages. The mountain stands. Unmoved. Unbroken. Unstoppable. You have built the fortress. You have forged the iron rod. The resilience is now in your bones. But a fortress, left unattended, will eventually crumble. In the final chapter, we transform this program from a project into your permanent personality. Chapter 10, The Daily Rewire, From Project to Personality. You have traveled a long way. You have dismantled the fixed mindset. You have audited your thoughts. You have built the cortisol firewall. You have reclaimed the remote control. You have pruned the old pathways. You have forged the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. You have flipped the neuroassociative switches. You have tuned the inner monologue. And you have built the resilience reserve. You are, in this moment, operating at a level of mental power that was unimaginable to you when you pressed play on this audiobook. But I need to deliver a warning that may sting. A project has a finish line. A personality does not. And if you treat everything you've learned as a project, you will lose it the moment the project feels complete. Most self-improvement fails at this exact juncture. The program ends. The book closes. The course finishes. And the participant, consciously or unconsciously, believes the work is done. They drift back to baseline. The neural pathways they so carefully carved begin to overgrow. The anterior mid-cingulate cortex begins to atrophy. The inner critic creeps back in, one thought at a time. Within weeks, they are back where they started, only now with the added burden of having failed yet again. This will not be you. Because you are going to understand the difference between a project and a personality. A project is something you do. A personality is something you are. This program is not a project. It is the beginning of a permanent identity shift. The daily rewire is not temporary. It is now the operating system of your life. Let me give you the first piece of that operating system. It is a protocol called the 10-minute morning imprint. The first 10 minutes of your day are the most neurologically sensitive minutes you have. When you wake up, your brain is transitioning from the theta and alpha wave states of sleep into the beta wave state of waking consciousness. The default mode network, the brain's background operating system, is booting up. And whatever you feed it in those first 10 minutes sets the emotional and cognitive tone for the entire day. Most people feed it chaos. They grab the phone. They flood the waking brain with notifications, emails, bad news, and the curated anxieties of social media. They are imprinting fear, reactivity, and distraction onto the most impressionable neural surface of the day. They are programming themselves for weakness before their feet even hit the floor. You will do the opposite. For the first 10 minutes of your day, you will touch nothing. No phone. No screen. No input of any kind. You will sit in silence. You will close your eyes. And you will execute a specific neuropriming sequence. First, strategic breathing. Slow, deep, diaphragmatic breaths. In for a count of 4, hold for 4, out for 6. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode, and tells the amygdala that you are safe, you are in control, and there is no emergency. Second, visualization. You will run the swish you learned in Chapter 7. You will bring up the big, bright, colorful panoramic image of your unstoppable future self. You will step into that image. You will feel, with full sensory vividness, what it feels like to be that person. The confidence, the calm, the power. You will saturate your waking brain with that identity. Third, the vow of action. You will state, out loud or in your mind, your commitment for the day. Today, I am willing to do the hard thing. Today, I am committed to the second draft. Today, I am the editor, not the ink. 10 minutes. Silence. Breath. Vision. Vow. The default mode network is now set to power, not fear. The imprint is made. The day is yours. But the morning imprint is only half the equation. There is another critical window for neural rewiring, and it happens while you are unconscious. Sleep is not just rest. Sleep is the construction site. During the day, you do the reps. You think the new thoughts. You practice the new responses. You override the old patterns. These experiences are encoded temporarily in a brain region called the hippocampus, which acts like a short-term memory buffer. But the hippocampus has limited capacity. If the day's learning stayed there, it would be overwritten by the next day's input. The permanent wiring happens at night. During REM sleep, the rapid eye movement phase, your brain performs a process called memory consolidation. It replays the day's important experiences over and over and transfers them from a hippocampus to the neocortex, the long-term storage vault of the brain. The new thoughts, the new responses, the second drafts you wrote, the hard things you did, these get physically installed into the permanent architecture during REM sleep. The synaptic connections are strengthened. The myelin wraps around the fibers. The new pathways are paved while you sleep. You do the reps during the day. Your brain builds the muscle at night. This means that sleep is non-negotiable. The person who brags about sleeping 4 hours a night to grind harder is unknowingly sabotaging their own neural development. If you are not sleeping sufficiently, and specifically if you are not getting enough REM sleep, you are exercising during the day but never giving your muscles time to repair and grow. You are writing the second draft but never hitting save. Prioritize sleep as a sacred part of your training protocol. Create a wind-down routine. Eliminate screens an hour before bed. Keep the room cool and dark. Give your brain the construction time it needs. The disciplined day and the disciplined night work together. One without the other is a half-built bridge. And now, I must give you the timeline. The hard biological truth about when all of this work crystallizes into permanent personality change. You have heard the popular myth that habits form in 21 days. That is a gross oversimplification. While 21 days can build significant momentum and begin the rewiring process, the full consolidation of a new neural identity takes longer. Research on synaptic protein stabilization, the molecular process by which new neural connections become durable and resistant to decay, points to a critical window of approximately 90 days. 3 months of consistent, daily practice. That is how long it takes for the new pathways to become the default pathways. For the superhighway of the old self to be sufficiently reclaimed by the jungle. For the new identity to move from something you are practicing to something you simply are. This is not meant to discourage you. It is meant to fortify you against the inevitable dip. Somewhere around day 30 or 40 or 50, you will hit a wall. The novelty will be gone. The initial gains will have plateaued. The old self will make a comeback attempt. This is where most people quit. They think the program isn't working anymore. They mistake the plateau for failure. But the plateau is not failure. The plateau is the forging zone. The plateau is where the synaptic proteins are stabilizing. It's where the cement is drying. If you quit during the plateau, you rip out the wiring before it has set. You leave the building half-constructed. But if you push through the plateau, if you keep showing up and doing the reps even when it feels like nothing is happening, you lock in the transformation for life. You are not mentally unstoppable after the 90 days. This is the final distinction. The title is not earned at the finish line. It is earned in the doing. You are mentally unstoppable because you do the 90 days. The identity is the process. The identity is the daily decision to rewire, to override, to prune, to forge, to tune, to harden. There is no graduation from being unstoppable. There is only the daily, lifelong commitment to the protocol. The morning imprint. The hard thing. The second draft. The chosen response. The self-distanced coaching. The negative visualization. The purpose-driven why. This is not a sprint to a finish line. This is the new operating system. This is the new you. Not a project to complete, but a personality to live. The 90-day window starts now. Not tomorrow. Not Monday. Now. The morning imprint begins with the very next sunrise. The hard thing is scheduled for today. The second draft is waiting for your next negative thought. The remote is in your hand. The iron rod is in your spine. The resilience reserve is full and growing. You have everything you need. You are everything you need. The rewiring is real. The science is solid. The protocol is here. The only remaining variable is you. Will you do the work? Will you stay in the plateau? Will you build the muscle, night after night, until the new architecture is unshakable? The answer is yes. Because you are not someone who is trying to become mentally unstoppable. You are mentally unstoppable. Now go prove it. Here is the final undeniable truth. You have just been given the blueprint to the most advanced machinery on planet Earth, your own brain. You know how to audit the thoughts. You know how to starve the fear circuits and feed the courage circuits. You know that your mind is a garden, and you are the gardener, not the garden. But a map is not the territory. A recipe is not the meal. I can teach you how to rewire your brain, but I cannot do the rewiring for you. That is your sacred solitary task over the next 24 hours. So here is your challenge, your non-negotiable assignment. Do not try to do all 10 things at once. Take 1. Take the thought audit. When the first negative, self-defeating thought enters your head this morning, I want you to stop. Write it down. Draw the line. Write the truth. Rewrite your script one thought at a time. Prove to yourself, in the first hour after this audio ends, that you are the editor and not the ink. Because the mentally unstoppable are not fearless. They have simply mastered the rewrite. Start yours. Now.